Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey there, friends. If you're looking for a fresh, delicious, organic, responsibly handled, and locally sourced Bible study, well, you found it. This is Daily Dose Radio, and we're all those things. The only locally sourced, responsibly handled Bible study made from 100% pure Bible on the internet that's 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, studying the Psalms verse by verse. Where else are you going to find this except in the Bible Bistro, Daily Dose Radio? That's what we do here. 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, studying the Psalms verse by verse. And this week we're looking at Psalm 44. This is a psalm of the sons of Korah, a maskil. It's a teaching psalm. And last time we noticed this back and forth between the work that God has done and what we haven't done. You know, he says it's not by our hand or by our sword that or our arm that has saved us and gotten us this great possession. No, this is the work of God. Verse 4 is the central confession here of this psalm. Verse 4, Thou art my king, O God, command deliverances for Jacob. Verse 5, we push down our enemies. Through thy name we tread them under, and that they rise not up against us. Now today we're going to look at verses 6 through 10, and this idea continues that there's something that we've done, and there's something that God does. So let me read for you, 6 through 10. For I will not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me. But thou hast saved us from our enemies, and hast put them to shame that hated us. In God we boast all the day long, and praise thy name forever. Selah. But thou hast cast us off, and put us to shame, and goest not forth with our armies. Thou makest us to turn back from the enemy, and they which hate us spoil us for themselves. That's verses 6 through 10. There are two adversatives here that we need to pay attention to. One's in verse 7, and then there's another one in verse 9. We'll talk about those in just a second. Notice, first of all, that we have this first person speaking. We had the first person there in verse 4 in what I called the Great Confession in this particular psalm. We have it again here in verse 6. I will not trust in my bow. So we saw that up there in verse 3. They didn't get the land in possession by their own sword, neither did their own arm save them. So he comes down here in verse 6 and he says, I'm not going to trust in my bow, and my sword will not save me. But you have saved us. Here's the first adversative. But you have saved us from our enemies, and has put them to shame that hated us. So I can't do it, but you can. I'm unable, but you can. See, that combination of saying of myself, I am not capable, that humility is always precedes the confession of God's ability. So my humility about what I cannot do always precedes my confession of what God is able to do. You have saved, and you have put them to shame that hated us. Then it says there in verse 8, in God we boast all day long. It's almost like our confession there in verse 4, isn't it? And praise thy name forever, Selah. So we have a Selah right here. Now then we come to verse 9, and we have the second adversative. But thou hast cast off, and put us to shame, and goest not forth with our armies. Thou makest to turn back from the enemy. So something has changed. And see, the second great adversative is not, but you've saved. The second is, but you have cast us off. So somewhere now sin has entered the picture, and the Lord has stepped back from his people. Not because he can't save them, but because he won't save them, but due to sin. He elaborates on this now. From here out in the psalm, we're going to find out why this is happening and the nature of it. It's very important as we go through the remainder of this psalm. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. We'll continue this second adversative theme of God's rejection of his people on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.